What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 22nd episode of the Envision Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Brad's Gaming, and as always, I'm joined by Triple Bravo.
Whoa! 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 Whoa!
Whoa!
Whoa!
Cut! Cut!
Whoa! Whoa!
What do
Whoa!
you mean? I can't switch it
Cut!
up?
Whoa!
Nope.
No! No!
Can't have a little fun?
No.
That's
Howdy,
a no-go
folks,
zone.
How,
Cut.
how bad did that throw you off?
and Clownish Joe.
Nope.
All right, I'll do it again. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 22nd episode of the Envision Game Podcast. I'm your host, Brad's Gaming, and as always, I'm joined by Clownish Joe
Hello, everyone.
and Triple Bravo.
Howdy, folks.
So Bravo took we ended up giving him the lead for this episode because felt bad. We dominated the past 4 episodes with the horror stuff, and we wanted to get something that, got his juices flowing. There, the brain juices, really, not other juices.
Not this month. November is not the month for that.
Yep. It's no Nestle November.
Mm. But it's been a while since we've really talked about some games that we've played recently. Got anything new that's been played in the past few months?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm actually really excited to get done with this podcast and go play Lost Ark. I've got access to the closed beta, which is kind of strange since the game has been out for like a year in Korea. But anyways, it's releasing in the US. I'm ready to play that. Been playing a lot of Hearthstone Mercenaries. Just a great game to play while I'm taking a break from work because it's single player, so I can just like leave it running in the background. Oxygen not included. I played the heck out of that game for about 2 weeks and didn't really make it very far at all, but I enjoyed every minute of it. On top of that, excuse me, almost through It Takes Two with Joe. I think we've got 2 acts left, 1 act left. Like we're really close to the end. I think that game is really cool. Like the creativity it takes to make a game like that and make the story good. Like it's just a really good game. If you've got a second person to play with, that's your game for sure. Yeah, I think that's about it. Notable games I've played. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, so most of my gaming time has been taken up in one of 2 ways, either by League of Legos or Ocarina of Time, which, to make you guys proud, I've beat twice already on the Switch.
Holy crap. I
Wrong.
feel like yesterday you were like, I haven't beaten the almost there.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's been out for what, 2 weeks now?
I think so, yeah.
But yep, I've beaten it twice.
I
Started a third playthrough.
I only play it when I go to the bathroom.
Every time we talk about Switch, we talk about poop skis.
You gotta bring the Switch to it's the perfect console for the
It's
poopskies,
the
that's all.
perfect pooping console. Where's the commercials for that? You know, you can take it with you anywhere, on the go, in a plane,
should
in
add-
the pooper.
Quit interrupting my list.
Really quickly, on the topic of poopskis, what they should do is add a case where the back of it is a toilet paper holder.
No, dude. There's probably microscopic particles
Stop
of
it.
poop ski.
Now we're done. Joe,
we're done.
continue.
You cut off.
Got to play some Age of Empires 4, as that released last week, some week. My concept of time shot. Pretty interesting game. They definitely took a lot of what was good in 2 and 3 and kind of mashed them together, but I don't know how I feel about it just yet. Been playing a bit of Back for Blood with the friends here, which we're gonna have a review coming out sometime soon here on that. We've been playing some Phasmophobia, but Brad does everything in his power to avoid playing with us.
Mm-hmm.
That's a total lie.
But on top of that, playing Oxygen not included. I love me some management games. Playing some City Skylines, some Muck. I started through Little Nightmares, and then the game Brad dragged me into kicking and screaming, Super Auto Pets.
Oh, yes. I got big things to say about that game.
Well, now's your time to shine.
All right. We'll jump right into it. So, Super Auto Pets is basically just an auto battler, very reminiscent of Battlegrounds, TFT, all of the popular ones. You know, Dota Underlords, which I haven't played much of, but so the thing I like about it, one, the aesthetic of it, I think is what drew me in because it's hilarious. They essentially just grabbed all of the emoticons from like
No, they literally took the emoticons from just
Android, Samsung.
From Android, yeah.
Yeah. So they took the emoticons and they used that as their art, which I think is genius. And then on top of that,
I also think it's like copyright or something. I don't know. How are you doing this?
I don't know how they're doing it, but they've done it somehow. Maybe
they're probably open source.
Yeah, they might be open source. Who knows? So the neat thing is, the game is free to play, so if you want to play it, and on top of that, it's asynchronous multiplayer. So you're not actually playing against another person live. What they do is when you queue up, say round one, you queue up and you have your team. They take a screenshot of your team name and your team that you have, and then you go against another team in that same level. And then boom, there you go. There's round one. I just think it's kind of neat. I'm sure they have some way of when they filter out. It's like, okay, that team's been here long enough. We'll cycle that out, replace it with something new. It makes it to where the game, I don't feel like will ever actually be dead in the terms of like you can't find a game because there's always going to be a screenshot there unless they just completely killed the servers. Just neat because I don't feel like the game's going to be massive. It has a little bit of a following, but
hey, I'm just happy.
Nothing compared to the big ones.
I'm just happy you guys are coming around to the mobile gaming market. Okay, welcome to the family.
It's not a mobile game yet.
Excuse me.
Okay, on Android.
It's a mobile
It's not
game.
on iOS.
It's definitely
not on iOS.
It's definitely a really shitty mobile game.
What is that aggression there?
It's just the truth, baby. It's just the truth.
How is it shitty?
I don't know.
It's solid.
It's not. I was just trying to ruffle.
I have 14 hours in this game.
Wow.
I also might have been AFK for a long time.
Wow.
So, anyways, enough of Super Autopet, as there's not too much more to really talk about. Other things I've played is I also found this game called Runeverse Sea Brawls. I've only played 3 games of it, actually.
Wait, what game was that?
Runeverse Sea Brawls.
Runeverse Sea Brawls. That's a
balls.
Brawls.
Brawls.
D-balls.
So, it's essentially a pirate themed auto battler as well, and it just came up in the newest like popular games or whatever. In Steam where it's like top of the list. It was like the second one on the list the day I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, it's free. What is this? Auto battler. Oh, all right, why not? I'll download it and try it. First game I played, I got first place, and I was like, all right, well, did something right here. And it's okay. It's very jank, I would say. I like the pirate themes of it, but other than that, really doesn't add much. It's essentially a complete carbon copy of Battlegrounds. Other than that, played obviously tiny bit of Diablo 2. Kind of slow down on that as I haven't found anything, which has lost my motivation, but the single player aspect of it I do really enjoy and want to play more of. And Joe hinted at our Back for Blood play that we did. I want to play a bit more of that too, so we'll have that review done. And honestly, I didn't really play too much else other than just a little bit of Battlegrounds. Hearthstone had its new mini set come out. Played like 5 games of that. And it's already broken and boring because people are boring and play the same crap over and over again. It's pretty much typical Hearthstone nowadays. So yeah, pretty simple.
Moving on to today's main topic, which is the fear of death. And before we do that, we're going to start a new trend where we ask a question to the listeners and get your response in the YouTube comments below, where we can get a little bit more interaction with people, even though we've been completely enjoying all the comments that we've gotten on our videos. So today's question of the week is, why do you think the fear of death is important in a video game? Go ahead and drop your answer in the comment right now, and then listen to the rest of the episode, and we can have some back and forth banter, if you will, about today's topic. So, gentlemen, why do you think the fear of death is important in a video game? Brad?
So, for me, it adds it mainly adds a reason to certain games. Obviously, there's games where you don't have to die in it, or even have combat in the game. But when you have something at stakes, it adds a different level to your immersion. So for myself, we'll use Diablo 2 as an example. You can play hardcore if you so all of your items are at stake, your character, all the time you've put into it, everything is at stake. It adds a new layer, makes you build your character completely differently. And basically, if I lose the character, you get close to death, gets that adrenaline pumping, you start feeling different things. Where if you're playing softcore the normal way, if you die, it's just like, oh man, I died. What an inconvenience of 3 seconds and 20,000 gold. That means almost nothing. So, just different level of immersion, I would say.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Brad and take it to the next point. I think maybe not necessarily immersion is the way I view it. I view it as more of a way to scale difficulty. Without death in a video game, I feel like games alone would get pretty boring, especially some punishing death mechanics. But if every game was just Minecraft creative mode, there's a lot less interest in creative mode to me than there is in survival mode in Minecraft. You die, you lose things, makes the game harder, makes the game more fun and fulfilling.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought up two really good points. One, the being boring from Joe. Like, yeah, you add that extra level of difficulty to a game, and it can make it more interesting. And that's on the same note as Brad, which I really like the point of bringing up that a single game can have multiple levels of difficulty, just scaling off whether or not you permadeath or maybe lose more. Some games you lose stats and money, or experience whenever you die, which can add up over time. But kind of going to the core of what inspired me to want to do this episode, which I've been bugging these guys to do this for weeks now. It's on our list of brainstorming ideas from months ago. So I'm glad I could finally shoehorn this topic in here. But this thought came to me whenever I was trying to become a better D&D game master for my tabletop games that I play with my IRL friends. I know, I have real friends. It's cool.
Wrong.
I can show pictures. But as I was
blow up dolls.
You leave Candace alone. So anyways, I was pondering what actually makes a good D&D session. Like, what actually makes it fun? What causes the players to want to come back, on the day we play, and actually want to play? Because there's a difference between, and if anybody's played D&D out there, you kind of know, sometimes it's just all right, we got to get through this story because this part's boring or whatever. And even a good GM for a game, maybe you just don't have a good story or you don't have a proper hook. Anyways, I digress. What I came up with is the fear of death is kind of the core mechanic that I build my games around. Now, I'm not saying that I make my games super hard or my
He
stories
kills
just
everyone.
but even if you have a mediocre story, you don't have to be the best GM out there, but if you make people's decisions matter and actually have weight behind them, then they will put more effort into playing the game. So, continuing on the D&D story, uh, maybe somebody is just like ultra risky with their character, like they think they're some kind of god, like they're a barbarian, and every time somebody looks at them they just go fight them. Well, you as a GM, you're like, okay, well, you just fought this random guy in the street, so the guardsmen come and there's 6 of them and one of you, and you're level 3, so you get your booty beat. And okay, well, he fights back, and you just let the escalation happen, and maybe the guards just straight up kill that dude because they're corrupt, or that's the rules in that society or whatever. Like, but you just make sure that the decisions they have actually have weight. Because I could just say, oh yeah, you beat that guy up, and nothing happens. You take his wallet, and you get his wife's phone number or whatever. Like it'd be anything. And that's might be a funny story, but it over time the player will realize, like, oh, I can just do anything. So what does any of this matter? And they start texting on their phone, start playing on Reddit, whatever. I've seen it, I've done it on games that I wasn't particularly interested in, and I feel like as a GM I have developed beyond what I used to be, and I can make some pretty good stories just kind of having that like generic like a fear of death thought rolling around whenever I'm creating worlds or creating decisions for players to make. So a more generic way to describe this fear of death, which is just a catchy title, ooh, fear of death. I wonder what this podcast is about. It can really boil down to the fear of loss, or maybe a risk versus reward balance that a person would have to have. And this, as a DM, it would be what I create, but as a game developer, it'd be the exact same thing, just, more rigid, as whenever they get done programming it, that's what they have. And obviously, this idea doesn't apply to all games. Some games are just there to tell a cutesy story or provide a casual play. So, like Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing, those aren't. I guess you do kind of die in Stardew Valley, but those games are just there to provide an experience and give a different kind of fulfillment than what I'm talking about here. So rolling right on into it, I've been talking for a while. Can you guys think of any games that kind of missed their mark when it comes to the fear of death? And what do you think makes them bad? Go to you, Brad.
All right, so I'm gonna be honest. It was very hard for me to think of an exact answer, but because I don't feel like the game that I'm gonna give an example like misses its mark. It's just I feel like these type of games lose their it loses the effect of death because they're so difficult, and it's like the super hard platformer games, right? So for example, I'm sure this might have thrown people Bravo and Joe off, but I put Super Meat Boy down, but I put SMB, so they might have thought Super Mario Bros.
Yes,
so
the fear of death.
yes,
Super Mario.
so in Super Meat Boy, if I don't know if you guys have played it at all, but
no, but I'm afraid to Google it.
Essentially, you're it's just like one screen for the most part. Some levels are larger in the beginning parts of it. It's just like with these one screen platformers that are very difficult, and you have to do wall jumps and precise platforming. And the whole point of it is you constantly die over and over and over and over and over again until you finish a level. So it just loses its effect because you're dying so often that instead of it being what makes me think of when I'm dying in a game of like, oh, you're having it has a negative effect. You don't want to die. You want to do well. You want to win. This game, it's very similar to how I sit in softcore in Diablo 2. It's just a minor inconvenience more than anything. It's just like, oh, all right, well, I died again.
Is that a
Hit the button.
roguelike?
No, it's just a very difficult platformer. That's all. So you essentially just keep constantly doing the one level over. When you finish it, you go to the next level.
Yeah.
Keep doing that over, next level.
And when you die, do you start completely over at the beginning of the level?
Beginning of that level, yes.
Oh,
but
wow.
the levels aren't long. I mean,
yeah,
they usually take, like, when you finish it, it's usually under like 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
I mean, sometimes it'll
Probably-
be a little longer if you take
yeah.
your time, but
that's like a successful run. So like you're dying like
30 seconds
times.
to a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, all right, whatever.
Yeah. So yeah,
I don't know. That was one example. And then the other thing I would say, and it doesn't, by the way, don't take in the sense that I think Super Meat Boy is a bad game. It's just, I think in the sense of like having a death as an effect, it doesn't have an effect, and it doesn't do it, I think, well in the sense that I always think of death, right? Doesn't mean it's a bad way of doing it. But the main thing I would say is horror games that are not done well, which I don't really have one off the top of my head, but basically any of the bad horror games, which there are plenty of out there. When these games are out there, essentially you don't have, if they're not done well, usually you're not afraid, which then means it's not doing its job right. Simple as that.
Yeah, and he taking the phrase literally, like without the fear of death, you know, like, well, why would I care if I'm not afraid in Resident Evil, because I'm just gonna walk through the whole thing. So I didn't give you guys too much of information whenever I wrote up this episode, or like the details. I just kind of gave you guys a little bit of information. So it's fun to watch your answer come back as like different than what I think about, which is exactly what I wanted. So, you know, taking the answer literally, and like, without the fear of death, any horror game isn't going to be as good, because you obviously need that to get the full immersive experience. And then the platformers, I completely agree. And that's kind of a unique concept from like a nod to the past. Like all those old school platformers, like, I don't know, Golden Axe, Double Dragon, just any action platformer game in the past, like they made them ultra hard and like not forgiving at all. Mainly, I think for the replayability, like force you to spend more coins at the arcade shop to, you know, continue the game. But also, you know, if the game was easy, they only had like X amount of levels, so you'd finish it in like 2 hours or whatever, you know. So they had to make it replayable.
So, and another old one that came to my mind too when I was thinking of it was like Castlevania. And as I said, this doesn't mean that they're negative, like bad games. It's just when I think of games that might miss the mark, in quotes, of death, sometimes it's more of frustration that occurs rather than like, oh, it's so bad. I mean, Castlevania might be a little bit of a better example of something that does it well, because you really don't want to die, because you don't want to go all the way back to the beginning. Well, actually,
the OG Castlevania was, in my opinion, ultra hard for no reason other than like poor mechanics. You know, like when you're climbing stairs in the original Castlevania, you can't attack. You can only attack straight out, which means any enemy coming at you from an angle, like you have to like plot and plan, but enemies automatically spawn off screen whenever you like kill them. So like it's just frustrating.
Medusa heads, baby.
Yeah, so
Medusa heads.
So looking back to my opening statement there, like the risk reward isn't there for me with that game. Like I tried to go back through it for nostalgia purposes, but I just skipped to the next one because it was ridiculous. I don't care. I'll watch some expert play through it, you know, on YouTube or something if I really want to go back to it. But let's hear Joe. What do you got for a game or games that you think miss their mark when it comes to the fear of death, and what makes it bad.
So I don't wholeheartedly agree with your guys' points, but my game I wanted to use as my point was Grand Theft Auto. In particular, newer Grand Theft Auto games, because I'm not as familiar with the older ones. But you play through the game, you're out there, you decide you want to go on a rampage, you get up to 4 stars of the cops getting on you, then you get killed. And you wake up, you lost about $20, and you just start over again. There's no real loss in the fact of dying in that game. And I think it's a bit of a blunder on their end. That
Well,
the only real repercussion.
You lost your weapons, right? So
I think that's only in like Vice City and for that. I'm pretty sure you didn't lose them in 4 or 5.
Did you lose them in San Andreas? I don't remember.
I'm not familiar.
I think you did. But regardless, it didn't matter because you just pop those cheat codes. And you get all the gun. Like literally, like you step out of the hospital or the police station, and your guy's just twitching, jumping around. What's happened to him? He's summoning all the demons, all the weapons and tanks and stuff.
But yeah, like, and your guys' point about Castlevania, you guys call it frustration, but to me, that is the definition of a fear of death. If you have to restart the game over, you are scared to die. I mean, I feel like that would be the best way to go about it.
So I think what it is from what so as I said, I wasn't saying that it was I think it's just platformers to me. When I think of like death, it's more of a nuisance than it is like a fear. It's just like, all right, well, so I gotta just redo this level again, which I might have done again before.
That you die in that's not a nuisance, but an actual fear.
I told you, Diablo.
Well, why is it a fear instead of a nuisance?
Because I'm afraid of dying and losing all my progress, and for me, it's not a nuisance to me because if I die, I'm like, oh damn, it's I messed up, I died, I made a mistake, I can do this better. I'm gonna restart it, and it's something I enjoy. I don't enjoy platformers like that, so it's a nuisance to me when I'm going through and playing Castlevania that has the clunkier controls. Just because it's an NES game doesn't mean it's a negative thing. But yeah, it's got the knockback mechanics. So you get hit, you get knocked back, you fall in the water, you're like, it's annoying.
So to me, all you're saying is because you like one game better than the others, that it's a fear of death and not a nuisance of death.
Yeah, I mean, I said, it's in platformers specifically, which is why I specifically said that. I don't feel like I'm afraid of death. I just get frustrated, and I'm like, okay, rather than wanting to continue to play it, and it's just like you don't like platformers, Joe. You told us
I do like platformers, actually.
Well, you never played Castlevania.
Right? I have played Castlevania, actually.
You literally told us not even that long ago, I've never played Castlevania.
I did tell you that not that long ago. But
so you must have just played it. And
I did.
From the online store?
Yeah, I have it on the Switch.
The bundle?
The collection.
Yeah. Okay, so anyways. Okay, well, Joe is an official lover of platformers now. So he's playing Fist. He's playing Fist now. Ooh. It's his number 1 game. And it's, to me, because what it comes down to, what I think does it bad, is if a game is either made bad or it's just something I don't enjoy. It's as simple as that.
Well, yeah. So what I was going to say is there's several factors, when playing any game or involved in any of these kind of things. Is if your interest isn't there, of course you're not going to want to play a game that you're not super interested in whenever it seems harder than what you're willing to invest in. That's not what I'm talking about here. That's not what this subject is supposed to be about. The simple answer to this debacle is Brad doesn't like Castlevania as much as Diablo 2, so he's not going to invest a whole bunch of time just to keep dying to the environment that he doesn't care to memorize or try to get through.
Yeah, it comes down to this. I've played a lot of Castlevania 1, actually. Like, I've never beaten it, but I've popped it in a couple times, like even in the past years. And I'm like, I want to give it a good shot. And instead of me, like, I'll get to a point, and I'm just like, instead of wanting to push forward because I'm enjoying myself, I'm just getting frustrated by the mechanics of the game, which is then making there's no fear of death. It's just like an annoyance of the mechanics themselves, which just comes down to personal preference because it's an opinion. That's all it is. I mean, if I don't like it, then it's, even if I'm enjoying it, I don't enjoy it that much, so I'm not going to continue playing something I don't enjoy.
No, and I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that I don't follow how this is applying to the fear of death in any way.
Well, like I said, the fear of death is the clever catchphrase. It's really just like the fear of loss or the risk reward factor in a video game, because obviously there's not a single game out there that actually causes you to fear for your life. It's just the catchphrase that I choose to to use. So moving on, some of the games that I have listed here are World of Warcraft. I personally think that it just seems like the majority of the game happens at the end, which is similar, which is pretty prevalent along any MMO. But you just like get to play through this whole game that has some pretty comical like storylines and quests and stuff, but it just doesn't matter until you get to the late game, and that's not what I'm about. So, I obviously don't like that kind of thing. Another game is 50 Cent Bulletproof. It's in the name, so I'm kind of nitpicking here, but you just feel like you're on tracks. We all played it together, and and it was worse than we remembered. And we actually were going to do a Let's Play for it, and decided to not to, right?
Yeah, it was the 50 Cent games in general, from what I can remember, they're very bullet spongy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, he is bulletproof,
I am.
Anyways, moving on. D&D with a bad GM. I had to put that in there since I talked about it so much. I think Mario Kart 64, if you just eliminate the goofy catch-up mechanic, I think it'd be fine. Mario Party, same thing. And then Warhammer Inquisitor, which is a Diablo clone in the Warhammer universe. It just there's certain skills that are unbalanced that just make you unkillable, either because you just deal so much damage or you just unkillable for whatever stat increase you get, which just does not make the game fun. And I had to personally limit myself, okay, I will not use this type of weapon or I do not enjoy the game at all, because it just completely breaks it, which is unfortunate, but as a Warhammer fan, that's just kind of what you have to put up with. So moving on, we'll do the flip side of that coin. And can you think of any games that capture the fear of death well? And what do you think makes that fear of death good?
So I have a question before we hop into this one, because I think I may be misunderstanding the topic at hand here. Could you elaborate a little more onto me what we're referring to of the fear of death whenever we're talking about Mario Kart, not applying it, or some of I don't remember the other ones you said, but outside of D&D and your Warhammer game?
You said Mario Party as well.
Yeah, I'm not what are we referring to as a death obstacle?
So that would be the fear of loss.
Yeah, he's not saying that you die in Mario Kart. It's that I think it's there's no sense of you losing, because it's such a coin flip, like in Mario Kart, right? You get the blue shell, it just out of nowhere, boom, you lost. There's no skill really involved. That's at least how I'm interpreting it.
No, there's a catch-up mechanic where the AI, regardless of the distance, they will speed up to catch up to you, to make the game, I guess, more competitive, even though you beat them. It's like a way for the AI to not have to know how to map themselves correctly, They just catch up to you. So yeah, again, the catchphrase for this subject that I like to talk about is the fear of death, but it's really generically the fear of loss or an imbalance in risk versus reward. I haven't thought about it for a second. Mario Kart 64 is probably not the best example of this, as it might just be my hate for that kind of mechanic. So I probably just retract it from this list. Like it's just not very applicable to the topic at hand. So Mario Kart, scratch from the list. So my next question was going to be, how would you fix these games? But we kind of touched on that from the various different games. So we'll just jump right over that. So moving on, can you think of games that capture the fear of death well? And what do you think makes them good at capturing that fear?
I already mentioned one that I feel like does it well, which is Diablo 2. And it's honestly, it's even Diablo 1 because if you don't save in Diablo 1, you lose your progress. So you can make it essentially a permadeath style game. So, like I said, it's having that fear constantly and kind of having those moments when you're, the butt cheeks are clenched and you're like, oh boy, it's a close call or whatever. Like those to me are what really put me over the edge, and I actually like when you get close to that because you feel like you're actually gonna have some loss. And roguelikes, I feel like do this also well because I like the randomization and having it, and like I said, it's all about the fast and like having enjoyable gameplay. What it comes down to, I think what makes a game capture having any sense of loss or death in general well is if the game is made well. If you have a game that doesn't play well, then you're not going to fear it because you're just like, well, I'm just going to put this game down anyway, so who cares if I died or not. It's kind of a mentality I have, where if you have like a roguelike, because it kind of almost contradicts it of like, oh, I keep dying at the same part in a platformer. Well, to me, platformers aren't as enjoyable as something that has combat involved where it's not just some, using the Castlevania example, like a knockback mechanic when you get hit in the air. Just something totally off the top of my head. I don't know. I just feel like Diablo 2 is one specific game. Diablo 1 and roguelike games do it pretty well.
Yeah, I like that you brought up roguelikes because like let's say like the ideal roguelike is actually attempting to capture that difficulty curve that, we got to make it difficult enough where people feel like they are progressing as they're gaining these minor advantages over time, which like simulates growth or like their skills increasing and kind of, I don't want to say tricks, but tricks your brain into thinking like, oh, the person playing this character is getting better and finally finishing the game, whatever it is. And then you have people like Joe who like the rogue style games where it's just like hard from the beginning, take no upgrades, and just like get through it with the as minimal increases to your stats or whatever as possible. Which I respect both those kind of players, and I like to bounce back and forth between the two. Like Hades, I really like all the upgrades, so I wanted to experiment with getting these different upgrades and like doing different things. But part of me wants to go back and try to get through the game without any upgrades, So it's kind of cool to kind of have that risk reward balance in the player's hands with the roguelikes.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to if a game that does it well is when you die, you have the mentality of, just one more run. Just one more run.
Mhm.
Just one more time. I'm going to do it. And you don't want to put it down. So it pretty much anything that falls in that category will, I think, work out well.
So my choice for a game that captures the fear of death really well would be any of the Soulsborne games, minus maybe Sekiro. And I feel like they're strong because whenever you die, you technically lose everything in terms of your experience, your money, but you also have the chance to, get back and redeem it and pick it back up. Whereas if you mess up twice, you're SOL, buddy. You got nothing. But
Mhm.
you really don't regress as a character, as in you won't lose levels, you don't really lose stats. You could possibly lose your humanity, which ends up being losing max health. But realistically, you don't really lose anything outside of what you've already gained on that run until you get to a save point or spend it. But whenever we're talking about these other games and how we feel like they don't do it well, it all seems like we're coming back to the point that we are only picking games that we like. And with the games that we like, the death mechanic being a part of these games. Whereas if we were referring to platformers, if I'm a big platformer fan, which I do like old platformers, Brad, I don't like new platformers. Uh, Whenever you die in those games, you lose all your progress. You start over. If I'm a fan of old platformers, I don't mind that, but I don't want to die and start over. I want to beat the game.
Mhm.
But as somebody who doesn't like the game as much and they die, they don't want to play all through the game again. They just want to be able to go through it at their own pace, which doesn't necessarily take away from the fear of the loss or the death, but in a way it makes it, what Brad was saying, uh, more frustration than anything.
Yeah.
Mm,
The
okay.
the
So
risk is greater than the reward.
yeah.
You
So
say that
okay,
for
I
every game.
have one question. Well, I have two questions for that. First of all, is why did you because I've never played Sekiro. Why is that game not included?
So that game has a revive function, and you could die and literally just pop back up and fight again.
Mm, okay,
As
makes
well
sense.
as I don't think you lose money in the same way. I could be wrong on that. It's been a while since I've played it.
Sorry, guys. That was my computer updating. You guys didn't hear it, but the listeners did.
Oh, wonderful.
That's probably why I was getting lag.
That makes sense.
Ah, Windows. You bang.
Oliver.
Oh, is it a woman? Hmm. That's
I
another
don't know.
topic. That's another podcast.
Yeah,
Is Windows a lady? Find out next time.
but I feel like it's the same thing with the fear of death in first-person shooters. If we're playing Call of Duty on a hard difficulty, there's the people out there who like that challenge that want to
Mhm.
be able to die in one shot and have that fear of loss. Whereas, Bravo, if you don't like playing first-person shooters in Call of Duty, you might want to play through it for the campaign and the story on regular, where you're
Mhm.
a bit spongier and you don't have that high fear of loss. It
Mhm.
all comes down to how much you enjoy the game to how much it's a fear of loss as opposed to a frustration. Because if you play it on veteran and you're not in love with the game, you get shot once and stuck on the same fight for 4 weeks, it's going to become frustration, and you're
Kudos
not
to
going to
you
play it.
for playing the game for 4 weeks and being stuck in the same spot. Like whoever you are, I love you. I
Yeah.
do want to call back to that your previous comment about the Souls games. By the way, my first choice for this section was obviously the Souls. Like anything from Software is just amazing, and
Mhm.
I haven't played Sekiro, so that's good to know. I still think I'm gonna play through it. I actually own it, just haven't had the time.
Definitely
But
worth a playthrough. I'm not saying it's not.
yeah, but I really like the redemption mechanic. You know, like oh, you got knocked down, but I get up again, and you're never gonna keep me down.
Shut up.
Oh my god.
But really,
Yeah,
that's a really cool mechanic in a game, and I'm gonna keep that in my back pocket just to think about that. Like, redemption. Yes, I like it.
um so I did have one thing to kind of go off of what Joe was saying. He was saying something along the lines, and I can't remember exactly how you worded it there because you got into that rant about the Call of Duty stuff. But you were saying that yeah, we were being, I guess, unfair to some of them because of platformers, if it's done well, whatever. Something of that line, right? Basically, my only thing is, so there are Soulsborne style games that are poorly made. So do you still think that it's the same, like the fear of death is the same to a game like that? Then, like, what I'm saying is if it's something that you don't enjoy, right? So if you pick up a Soulsborne game that is bad,
Mhm.
then it's just frustrating and you don't enjoy it.
Okay, are
So
you saying that they still have like the same death mechanic? Like you die, you drop your souls, you get back, you can pick them up. If you die again, you
yeah,
lose them. Okay.
but so what it is if it could have the same mechanic because there are. What I'm coming to the conclusion of is this: I it's not that I think that I'm being unfair with those games. It's just like a personal preference is all what it is, rather than it being like, oh, this is bad. Because something like the Soulsborne, like for example, my friends, they absolutely hate
Yep.
those games
All
because
of my friends do too, so I understand that all too
yeah,
well.
and I'm trying to tell them no, that's the point of it, and that's what makes it fun. Is like you're going into it and you need to be different. You need to be tactical. You need to have a plan going into it. You can't just rush in Call of Duty style guns blazing and go kill everything. Like you need to take your time a little bit. And as soon as they die, they're like, "Wait a minute. I'm back here. This is fun. I don't like this. I hate this game." And instantly turn it off. So that's
Can I pause you right here?
yeah.
Tell me that you didn't say the exact same thing about Castlevania.
No, so what
N-
I'm saying is I think it's personal preference though, right? So for them, they don't enjoy it where
Mhm.
we enjoy it. So if I don't enjoy a game that does it well, it's not that the game itself doesn't do it well. It's that the game to me doesn't do it well because I can't see past it as I'm frustrated rather than enjoying it for the full features as just not a fan. Like MOBA, for example, I'm not a big MOBA fan. So for me, rather than enjoying the game, like when I lose, I'm frustrated because I'm like, damn, I just lost 45 minutes of my time playing something I don't enjoy.
Mhm.
There's no fear of death in that game. It's just me sitting down and playing it and instantly going, why did I start this up again? I shouldn't have.
Okay. So I get where you're coming from, but to me it sounds like you're just saying I don't like this game, as opposed to saying this game has a bad feeling of loss or death, or a
No,
fear of loss or death.
it is in a sense that. So let me gather my thoughts. Take it.
So while you're thinking on that, let
Yes,
me see if I can provide my input on this. So the game as it is made, like this platformer game that's just ultra hard. We'll just keep talking about Castlevania 1. I'm so sorry, developers, but we apparently hate your game.
As I said, I wanna say I don't
So,
hate it.
I know.
I'm using it as an example.
I know. So what it is
That's all. I like
your
Castlevania 1.
it's your personal preference, kind of like on one side of the bouncing beam, and then like your your willingness to play the game, and like how you want to calibrate that, right? So if you could go into the code of Castlevania 1 and like change a little bit about it to make it more resonate with your preference of game, you might still really enjoy the game. You might even enjoy it more because suddenly you're a god and you're unkillable. But then you're just playing the game to kind of like get through the story, or maybe you scale it back and kind of go in between being a god and being killed all the time to that perfect, let's say resonant frequency with your personal preferences. That's like, okay, I've scaled up the health a little bit. The enemy's AI isn't so bad. So like that's the kind of game that I like. So yeah, it's 100% personal preference, and it really depends on the person with a lot of these particular subjects. But I really like how this conversation has happened
We went
because
in a circle about 4 times on this
Yeah.
topic as
yeah,
well.
but I I have I made these talking points in this certain order because my next point is kind of the core of this, like the secret core of this conversation, which is I believe that progression through a game or even just any story in general becomes more fulfilling whenever you yourself feel that you've grown along the way. Maybe that's you through the eyes of the character in a book that you read, or you through the eyes of a character in a video game. In a game, it's like maybe the skills you've learned to master, or straight up game knowledge, or in like Dark Souls, probably both. You've learned how to dodge roll, and you've learned the map and know how to get around certain enemies or what have you. But the sense of satisfaction that I personally get from making it through these deathly type of games are what makes these my favorite to play. So although the fear of death, or the risk of loss, if we want to be generic, is artificial in these games because nobody's actually dying, I can still feel fulfillment from completing the game or making it through the game. I can really, kind of simulate growth. And I'd like to ask you guys, what is your favorite game that you felt like, you felt that sense of growth through, so like for me, it's going to be like the Dark Souls games. Like the first time I beat Dark Souls, like I really felt like I accomplished something. Like it was me versus them. And yes, like the game helped me by slowly allowing my character to be stronger, but I'm perfectly fine with being, for lack of a better word, tricked by these video games to feel that sense of accomplishment, because the games are really just simulating this story arc of the main character that starts from nothing, goes to something, and you're right along there with him, kind of riding along or controlling him. So what are your thoughts? What's your like? Am I just like blowing smoke, or you guys know what I'm talking about?
So I don't know. I don't know if this is the same question you wrote down, but it's the way you worded it was I feel like kind of different than what I had prepared. So the way that you worded it this way is differently because it still is in the same realm of what we've been talking about from the fear of death. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, Dark Souls and Demon Souls, all those games, they are realistically, I think, the best examples of these games. And like because you have that fulfillment when you complete a boss, when you move on to the next area, when you level up, when you conquer something, or you just progress in general.
Okay.
It just has a great feeling for it if you have the patience for it.
So I actually wrote down what I thought your answer would be. So I thought you would say something along the lines of playing through Resident Evil for the first time. That sense of accomplishment that you get from figuring out all the puzzles. And
it's definitely up there. Honestly, I mean, there's a good chunk. Every game has some sense of accomplishment that's very satisfying and fulfilling in general, because if it didn't have that, it wouldn't make you want to go back to it. I mean, so like Hearthstone, when a new expansion comes out, I get like this high when I create a deck from my own brain, not net decking it.
Habanero Pirates.
And yes, and I just, wreck everybody on ladder. Like it's very satisfying. Or you're playing Battlegrounds on a new new expansion, new heroes are out, new cards, completely change it up. Joe and I are sitting there and we find some stupid build that we're like, this is so broken and everything, and then we hate it the next day because everybody's playing it and we realize that we're not the only ones. Looking at you, leapfrogger.
I'm a genius.
Yeah, we literally thought we were geniuses when that card came. We're like, Leapfrogger, oh my god, it's so broken. And
There's
then
literally no reason you should think like you weren't the first ones to figure it out, and then the people you beat were like, "Oh, I'm gonna try that," and then they beat people. Like you're the start of the trend.
I
both
am
of
a trendsetter.
Congratulations. Yep.
I should get paid millions.
So I also think Bravo played us with his wording on this document for us to prepare with. And I think it was intentional and there's no convincing otherwise.
It definitely was intentional.
I want to point out that this was very specifically worded as the fear of death about 80 different times on our document. And then we get in here and Bravo's like, well, it's not just the fear of death we're talking about. And then we're just
Probably
like,
did it so he can get the conversations flowing, and then because
well,
he
I
knew.
just want to say I don't like it.
I don't like being manipulated. I didn't mean
But-
to manipulate you in a negative way. I wanted you to think about the topic that I wanted to talk about without like. It's like once you look into the chest, like you know what's in there, so you can't like guess about it. You know, I don't. There's a phrase for that, but
Okay, well, here's Bravo's
Schrodinger's
wording for our
cat,
final
you know?
question that we're talking about here. What kind of games satisfy or fulfill you the most? What gets your rocks off?
hey,
So-
I said that in confidence between us. Yeah.
So naturally, Brad looks at this and goes, "Oh, trading card games, auto battlers, roguelites, Diablo style games." And it's like, yeah, that's what Brad likes to play.
Mhm.
But it doesn't fit the conversation at all, so
It
we're just sitting
didn't-
here
well, that-
confused as can be.
Yeah, so then I had to pull something completely out of thin air. And
It's perfectly fine. I feel like some of those games could definitely resonate with what we're talking about here.
with the yes, the fulfillment thing, I feel like I worded it well in the sense that you can get it basically out of any game that's done well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can feel
Any game that you enjoy, you will get the sense of fulfillment, and you will have a fear of loss.
The
Yes.
the idea is to think about your own enjoyment. You know, why we play video games, why you go through all this trouble of spending hours playing games, sitting there, kind of what our parents would say, wasting your life away. Go get a job. Nobody loves you. Well, and, you know, stuff like that.
nobody loves.
Whoa!
God,
I hope your parents aren't telling you that. Or just remember, we love you.
yes. Not so, and have a little bit of transparency. Not only did we get manipulated by Bravo, and I feel like this was his master plan. He wanted
A whole
he
month of
wanted me-
torturing him.
Yeah, he wanted me to come out here and say something stupid, and then Joe to make me feel stupid, and then all of this stuff happens.
And then
And
we
then
realized
right
it was
before that-
Bravo's fault.
Yeah, and then not only did he do that, but the man had the audacity to walk in here before the podcast starts in a robe and seduce me with some very sensual dances.
He
on
says,
camera.
"Do you think I'm naked under this robe?"
And he was.
Just so everybody knows, it's really close to freezing right now in my area, and I was wearing a comfortable robe. And that is all I was
Okay.
wearing.
But
It's
the
for
game
3
said,
inches.
as Bravo says, "Get my rocks off." I like games that give me a true, honest challenge. I don't want to sit down and blow through a game. I thrive off that fear of loss and death in video games, whether that be Dark Souls games or some of my favorite games of all times. And I feel like they are the most optimized version of the fear of loss and death in video games. And you do get that sense to redeem yourself. So maybe if it was just a one-off mistake, it's not something like if it's a one-off mistake in Castlevania that you're starting to play the whole game over again.
Mm-hmm.
I could think of an example of a game that does not have any fear of loss, but is a masterpiece, which is rare.
Tell me.
Mort the Chicken.
The whole game is about
Fair.
the fear of loss. He's got to get his little chickies back.
Yeah, but you can jump off the edge and fly forever.
And you can either
There's
do it.
no loss.
You can either do it in 3 hours or 6 minutes, whatever way you want
Whatever you're feeling,
Okay,
you're done.
So there's one outlier to our point so far, and it's Mort the Chicken, which we already have determined is the best game ever made. So,
we might as well delete the podcast.
The goat. The goat.
but another game that I feel, and I didn't mention it before, but MOBAs in particular, I feel like also really give you that sense of loss. As in, if you die in the game, you're not only putting yourself behind in experience and gold gain, but you're also advancing your enemy in both of those topics as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword that are both bad for you, and it makes you really fear that sense of death. But yeah, I mean, any game that, like I said, gives me a drive and some type of competition, whether it be PvP, PvE, it doesn't make a difference to me per se, as long as it has that, sense of difficulty and not something I could just sit down and breeze through without any thought or have that feeling of personal growth.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you brought up the competitive side of gaming and how it relates to this because, yeah, you're right. In a MOBA, you you don't want to get behind. You don't want to lose your specific role or lane or whatever. But whenever maybe as an objective based game, you play with 5 people, and the other 4 people are complete strangers, and they just lose the game for you. It's out of your hands, and you feel disconnected from that. You're like, oh man, like I just want to play the game. I just want to have a good team. So you go out and you find 4 friends, and you have a heckin' good time. And everything matters again, and it's a better gaming
I
experience.
also want to make a point that I think the three of us here are some of the most patient people I know, period. But you put us in a single MOBA game. You
Suddenly,
give me 5 minutes in lane with old Dusty,
yeah.
and
I actually want to say this. Bravo is probably one of the most intelligent people I've met. And he is extremely patient, very calm. As soon as he gets into a MOBA, his brain turns into mush. He can't even form sentences. The man is broken. Okay? It's almost impressive. And then we've been talking about, okay, what do we do to increase our content for like let's plays and whatnot? And I'm like, listen, I'll sit down. I'll bite a bullet. I know you guys love MOBAs. I'll play it. Both of them, no, never. I won't do it. And I'm like, why? It doesn't make. I can't talk. I can't do it. Does it?
It's
All right,
true, man. It's true. I'm sure I could go find some old VODs of me trying to stream when I was first trying to like find my streaming personality, and trying to stream League of Legends. Like I would forget that I was streaming because like all 99 brain cells were focused on League of Legos, and
you gotta get that CS, man.
yeah. Also, you just get buried in the comments, like or buried in the pages and pages of people trying to stream their Silver 2 game, making it to gold or whatever. Like, hey, I'm not bashing you if you do it, but
Oh
it's-
yeah, don't bash me for making gold.
it's not for me. So if you guys don't have any more on this particular topic, I've got one more thing to say, and
This isn't on our list.
yeah, I know, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit in the podcast.
I know you know, but I want the viewers
scared.
to know that you're throwing another curveball at us.
So this is the topic, kind of like a PSA about overgaming. I often think about the amount of video games that I play and how much it's quote unquote healthy. And some part of me knows that it's my old school family upbringing. In my family, if you're the age of 12 and you don't have a job, you're kind of a POS. So it was kind of rough growing up with those workaholics. And it takes a lot of energy for me to like convince myself that I'm not a piece of crap for like being successful with the career and not having to work so much. But anyways, like the need to like get a job, grow up, stop playing with video games and whatnot, like all that toxic environment. Everybody's probably heard it at home or maybe watching a movie. Another part of me thinks on how much more I could get done if I didn't play video games at all, and how much these simulated fulfillments prevent me from getting real life fulfillment and success. So it's important to balance your life and your happiness, and make sure you're not not just doing one or the other. You know, it's that particular balance, and having friends helps a lot. And for me personally, feeling progress every day really helps with anything that I do. So, you know, I go to the gym 4 times a week, so that really helps me to like feel that even though like minuscule progress, it helps my brain calm down and like realize that I'm not POS, and like I'm doing fine. I'm a good guy, like my family's really grilled that into me. And then, you know, the personal projects like working on the bus and all that stuff, it really helps too. But just make sure you're balancing your life and not becoming addicted to those games. And that's it. That's Big Papa Bravo.
My turn.
Yeah, your turn. But that's it for me. That's Big Papa Bravo
Okay.
taking care of his children's.
Take what Bravo says and do what makes you happy. If you want to be a gamer for your life, be a gamer. Don't listen to Bravo. Don't let him ruin your hopes and dreams.
Brad is.
Well, I think I get what Bravo's saying. But because
I get what he's saying too, but
I have
don't let him dedicate your life. He tried to dedicate my life, and I told him no.
You definitely got to do whatever makes you happy and stuff. So for myself, I've had days where, you know, everybody's had this day. You sit down, you take the day off from work or something, and you're like, all right, binge playing through God of War, or Resident Evil or something. Here we go, baby. And then you're like, you know, 10 hours deep into it. And
you're just
this
like,
is for me. I feel like hot garbage when I do that. Any day that I've put in like way too much time into games, this is just me personally, I feel like crap because I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to have a balance of something that fulfills me. Like I need to feel like I earned that time to play, whether it's like Bravo said, working out, working in general, like having a day that's had some sort of fulfillment, I guess. It doesn't even have to be like work related, just yeah, I don't know. But in general, if I just sit down and I play not nonstop, I'm like, ugh. I don't know. I feel like my legs start cramping. I get like restless leg syndrome and stuff.
No, Brad, that's just you getting old, brother. Yeah,
it is that
that's
too,
different.
it's real bad.
But I just want to thank you two gentlemen for doing this podcast with me, and Brad specifically for creating this idea and involving us in it, because it helps me feel like I'm being productive. No, it helps me feel like I'm being productive and like
this sounds like a retirement speech.
All this video game experience is actually paying off because we can do some fun podcast stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's a good excuse to sit down and hang out with the friends and just chat and like put time aside no matter what and just hang out. Mm-hmm. You know, talk about something, have something that we're kind of working on together. Obviously, I'm a bit on the busy side, but things have been calming down a bit. So I've been, I think, hopping on a little bit more than I was a few weeks ago. So, you know, trying to be around and hang out with the dudes, you know?
With the boys. And on that note, if you guys don't have anything else to say, we will end it there. We appreciate you listening to this here podcast. We love you. Call your mother. Have a good one. Cue the music.